In Zechariah chapter 1, verses 18 through 21, it says this, and I quote, "Then I lifted up mine eyes and saw, and behold, 4 horns. And I said unto the angel that talked with me, What be these? And he answered me, These are the horns which have scattered Judah, Israel, and Jerusalem. And the Lord shewed me 4 carpenters. Then said I, What come these to do? And he spake, saying, These are come to fray them, to cast out the horns of the Gentiles, which lifted up their horn over the land of Judah to scatter it." End quote. Now Zechariah describes 2 mysterious entities at war. The horns of the Gentiles against the 4 carpenters. The horns are responsible for scattering the 12 tribes of Israel throughout the world. The carpenters retaliate with revolution to cast out the horns and emancipate the Jews. Dr. E. Schuyler, English, the editor of the journal called Our Hope during the 1940s and 1950s, and Marion Bishop Bauer, the professor at Philadelphia School, now College of Bible, comment on the meaning of the word horns in prophecy. Quote, "In the Bible, horns speak of power, often the power of a Gentile king," end quote. The first biblical record of a Gentile king was Nimrod. And we've discussed this king many, many times on this hour. He was known as the Mighty One who built Babylon. Archaeologists have discovered that this monarch wore a crown of bull horns, which may be the reason Scripture has since identified a world power by this symbol. You see, Nimrod's system of rule was to unite religion with politics. Sound familiar? Thus inaugurating what is known as the Babylonian system. This can be found in Genesis chapter 10, verses 8 and 10, and chapter 11, verses 2 through 4. And they give us a brief history of Mystery Babylon's beginning. And I quote, "And Cush begat Nimrod. He began to be a mighty one in the earth, and the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, and Erech, and Akkad, and Calneh, in the land of Shinar," which is Babylonia. "And it came to pass, as they journeyed from the east, they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. And they said, Go to, let us build us a city and a tower, whose top may reach unto heaven, and let us make us a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth." End quote. The city, ladies and gentlemen, stands for the political or civil power of the king, and the tower represents the king's divine or religious power. You see, I have discussed this before with you. In the Bible, what you are reading are metaphors. In ancient pagan religions, the king united both powers. Nimrod's Babylonian system forms the pattern by which all kingdoms afterwards would be governed, that is, with religion and state united. Many centuries later, a Babylonian king named Nebuchadnezzar would be the first to lift up his horn over the land of Judah. Nebuchadnezzar is the first of these 4 historic horned powers mentioned by Zechariah. The other 3 powers were Medo-Persia, Greece, and, of course, Rome. Both English and Bauer suggest that Zechariah's 4 carpenters were workmen, perhaps carvers or smiths, workers in iron. God wanted to make clear that he has an instrument to destroy every power that works against him. The workmen, you see, were to crush the world powers which had scattered both Judah and Israel, and which were determined to wipe them out. What, in fact, these 2 Bible commentators have just described is a Masonic revolution. Carpenter, as we know, is a synonym for Mason. Masonic symbols display the tools of carpenters, such as the square and compass, which is the chief symbol of Freemasonry. The French Masonic Revolution, a working man's uprising, was the first to destroy a modern Gentile kingdom and fully emancipate the Jews. French Freemasonry was also the first to form workers' unions, using the force of strikes to paralyze a nation. The 1848 and 1871 French Masonic revolutions were both organized from 500 workers' unions. Likewise, the 1905 Grand Orient Bolsheviks coordinated over 1,600 strikes involving 1 million men and women in St. Petersburg in Russia. Almighty God inspired Zechariah to use carpenters as the word to represent 4 Masonic conspiracies against 4 Gentile world powers. In Hebrew, carpenter literally means mason. Furthermore, the Hebrew primitive root figuratively describes a Masonic conspiracy, quote, to devise, hence, to be silent, to let alone, conceal, practice secretly, keep silent, be silent, speak not a word, be still, hold tongue, end quote. A derivative of the prime root defines carpenter as a mystery religion, quote, magical craft, also silence, cunning, secretly, end quote. When the prime root is capitalized, it means, quote, a Levite, end quote, which the Masonic Scottish Rite, or so-called Jewish Rite, claims as one of its titles. Another derivative of the primitive root means, quote, spiritually deaf, end quote, which deceived Freemasons certainly are. The action taken by the 4 carpenters in the passage from Zechariah was to fray and cast out the Gentile powers. Fray, ladies and gentlemen, in Hebrew means, quote, to shudder with terror, end quote. The 4 carpenters could represent 4 modern Masonic revolutions that have actually terrorized and dethroned 4 Gentile kingdoms that have persecuted the Jews. In fact, terrorism, which is suggested by the Hebrew word for fray, has been the tool used in all Grand Orient-style revolutions. Indeed, the kings of Europe shuddered with terror when the French Revolution began, as did Frenchmen during the Reign of Terror, and Russians during what is known as the Red Terror. You've all heard these terms. English and Bauer also state that the 4 horns refer specifically to Babylon, Persia, Greece, and Rome. Daniel chapter 2 also prophesies the rise and fall of these 4 powers. According to Daniel, the 4th declines, but will never cease to exist. Instead, it divides into 2 legs, Constantine's Eastern and Western Empire, and then divides further into 10 toes. Daniel chapter 7 verse 7 describes the 10 toes as a beast with 10 horns. Revelation chapter 13 verse 1 also describes the beast as having 10 horns. Both are the very same beast. Many would say the end-time beast, but even in the Bible and even in the books of prophecy, it will not be the end. Anyone who uses the term the end time, or the end of the world, or the end of the earth, or the end of time, or the end of the universe, are all lying. Many Bible commentators refer to the 10 toes and 10 horns as the revived Roman Empire, which they believe will include 10 European nations at the end of this age, which is the proper term to use. We can possibly understand the 4th horn mentioned by Zechariah as indeed the horn of the Roman Empire, but of Rome, as it extended to medieval Europe, where the old Roman Empire became known as the Holy Roman Empire, Europe's Babylonian system of united church and state continued to be governed, spiritually at least, by Rome. And like old Rome, the Holy Roman Empire was rabidly anti-Semitic. Not until the violent Carpenter revolutions began 300 years ago was the Roman horn of the Gentile kings cast out, and Jews became emancipated. Now perhaps Zechariah's 4 carpenters represent the 4 major Masonic revolutions documented throughout history. English, 1688. The Americans, 1776. The French in 1789. And the Russian in 1917. Not only did these 4 revolutions emancipate the Jews in their wake, they also prepared the ground for Israel's revival as a nation in 1948. You see, we can trace the stages of this movement. France gave full emancipation to the Jews in 1791. Russia gave birth to the Zionist movement in the latter half of the 19th century. England gave Palestine to the Zionists following World War I, and America guarantees Israel's survival today. These 4 Carpenter revolutions fought against a Babylonian system that united religion with crown. Revelation 17 refers to this system as Mystery Babylon, the mother of harlots. At the time the revolutions began, the harlot was headquartered at Rome. Where, dear listeners? You see, the actual location of Mystery Babylon in place, time, and religion, or church, has fascinated an awful lot of people. The history of Scarlet's travels reveals that as world kingdoms have marched westward, so in tandem have Satan's headquarters advanced. Revelation 18 discloses that Scarlet's religion controls kings, commerce, and politics. Satan's seat, therefore, must be established at the center of a dominant world power where crown and religion have never been separated. Following what is known as the Great Flood, Satan set up his seat of power at Babylon. When Christ walked the earth, Satan was headquartered at Jerusalem. When the adversary was unable to crush Christianity at its source, Reverend Clarence Larkin, in the book of Revelation, 1919, suggests that Satan followed the church to continue his incessant war against her. Thus, Satan's center of operation transferred to Pergamos, Asia Minor. At that time, the western edge of the Christian movement. Most of you have never even heard of it. Satan's apparent intent was to block further missionary outreach westward to the continent of Europe. In Revelation chapter 2, verse 13, Christ speaks of Satan dwelling at Pergamos, and he says, quote, "I know thy works, and where thou dwellest, even where Satan's seat is, and thou holdest fast my name, and hast not denied my faith, even in those days wherein Antipas was my faithful martyr, who was slain among you, where Satan dwelleth." End quote. Each westward move of the church has been accompanied by Satan and his harlot religion. Now, bear in mind, if you've been listening to this broadcast for some time, when I talk about Satan, I'm talking about a group of people who practice a mystery religion and believe in a certain philosophy. Satan and his harlot religion, ladies and gentlemen, are known and have been revealed on this broadcast as Mystery Babylon. Thus, when the Roman Empire was the dominant kingdom, Satan left Pergamos for Rome, and Scarlet Mystery Babylon followed. The Apostle Peter's reference to Babylon in 1 Peter chapter 5 verse 13 indicates that the early Christians were aware that Mystery Babylon had located there. Quote, "The church that is at Babylon, elected together with you, saluteth you," end quote. Reverend Hislop, in his marvelous work, fantastic research, I recommend it to everyone listening. It's called The Two Babylons, printed, or published, I should say, in 1916, which was subtitled, "The Papal Worship Proved to be the Worship of Nimrod and His Wife," lends his entire research to the premise that Mystery Babylon took up permanent residence in the church at Rome, something that I have confirmed for you in my own research and have illuminated your minds with that fact. Hislop states that it has always been easy to show that the church, which has its seat and headquarters on the 7 hills of Rome, might most appropriately be called Babylon, inasmuch as it is the chief seat of idolatry under the New Testament, as the ancient Babylon was the chief seat of idolatry under the Old. End quote. Reverend Clarence Larkin was of the same opinion. Larkin claims that the descriptions of the 7 churches of Revelation, chapters 2 and 3, Ephesus, Smyrna, Pergamos, Thyatira, Sardis, Philadelphia, and Laodicea, are prophecies of church history. He suggests that Mystery Babylon traveled from Babylon to Pergamos, then from Pergamos to Rome. Larkin asserts that the period of dominance of Roman Catholicism in church history is prophesied in Revelation chapter 2, verses 18 and 19, which addresses the church in Thyatira. That should be Thyatira. Bible commentators, English and Bauer, held that same opinion in their annotations to the Pilgrim edition of the Holy Bible. You see, they noted that the word Thyatira means continual sacrifice. They linked this meaning of Thyatira with the main act of worship of the Catholic Church, the sacrifice of the Mass, which is a continual ordinance within the Roman Church.